Good morning. We are live. This is the market update. I am your host, Nuked Noble. Today, we will look at charts and go over news and try to figure out what is happening and why it's happening. Let me just kick right into it. Let's just get started because we're having so much fun. Crypto, the only market with the inbred self-destruct like Captain Kirk back in the day. It's like, oh, enter the code and blow up the enterprise. All right, now let's begin with hyperbole, which probably was Coinbase putting its name on a Formula One car. That was 10 days ago. So that was warning number one. And then warning number two was this Bybit thing. Now, the good news was that I was like, these things are never over in one day. That's what I said. I was like, they just don't just go away because some guy with a black t-shirt and a little earphone gets up and goes, oh, don't worry, we have everything. And all the Bybit affiliates go, yay, what a great job you're doing. And they probably did do a good job, but you have no idea what the ramifications are, right? Because everyone thought it was over in one day. Now, what I should have done was gone, oh my God, someone's going to have to sell. That's what I should have said. Because I knew it wasn't over in a day. So, if I'm doing a self-review, what was the next step? And then Sunday night, when I'm sitting around and I look at my phone and it was down 5%, I was like, oh my God, someone's liquidating. So to keep it simple, here's what I think is going on. Bybit had reserves, right? But the reserves could have been held in crypto, and they could have had loans out there, right, that they could call in. So people just don't sit around with $1.5 billion in a giant pile of cash in a bank. It's not the FDIC. Bybit's like, well, we have reserves, but, we can loan some of it out or buy crypto for our own account or whatever, right? They're running a business. So what apparently happened, or what it looks like from the screen, is that Bybit lent money to somebody who went out and got levered, right? Meaning they probably maybe bought spot with some of the borrowed money somehow. And then Bybit just called them up and said, hey, we need our money back now. So whoever this levered player is has to sell everything. Now, how do you know that might be true? Well, Michael Saylor was able to buy $2 billion worth of Bitcoin yesterday, and I was like, boom. In other words, like an institutional sales desk like Galaxy Digital, who's got the liquidator and Mike, on the phone, is like, hey, do you need to sell? Okay, how much? Okay. Hey, Mike, we got $2 billion worth of Bitcoin right now. Do you want it? Yep. Okay. Okay, dude, you're done. And they had more to sell. And it went down more, which is, I don't know, retail or everybody on Bybit or just everybody, right? People who got relevered, destroyed. Now, the good news is that this is forced selling. Normally, when forced selling ends, the market will just float up and levitate higher. But one of the things that is disturbing in the meantime, and the way it's forced selling or suspect it is because the market, like Solana, goes straight down and just sits there, right? Like Solana's down 15% yesterday, and it just sits there, and it's still in the red. Just like no bounce. I mean, if it was like an actual down market, you would have down 15%, up 5%, down 3%, up 6%, down 10%. You'd have all this, you'd have a lot of volatility. This is just and sit. Okay. So you have forced liquidation and, you know, you have this in front of the State of the Union. So this has like, I'm not going to go into, what can happen. We just have to deal with what is happening. So let's start with that. Let's start with the idea that someone is being forced to liquidate. Okay. And then we'll go through whatever we can go through. All right, Vanessa, Leo, Arendam, what is going on, dude? I'll do my best. Malik, Huber's Ranch, Maxwell, Zapatis, Old Smoky, not for the weak or faint of heart. Warmon, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Yeah, actually, I think there is, because I think, again, this is not the end of the cycle. This is just a gigantic liquidation trade. Gigantic, right? When this is over, no one will be left long. Zav, good morning. Zoltaire, Fire Sale, Malik, Taz Pinball, Roby, is this the bottom? Dude, I hope so. Okay, Jay Jones, the market will do this until QE starts. Yeah, except QE, I think, is going to come from the Bank of Japan. We'll try to go over that, because this situation is complicated now with tariffs and stuff like that. Stefan, good morning. Kaizen. Honest is here. Welcome. All right. Okay, let's go with the qualitative fireside chat before I start pouring into charts and news. So frequently you don't get this down only action, particularly in Bitcoin, unless you got more than one thing going on. You got to have more than one. So I think the first thing, like I said Sunday night, was that someone is liquidating. Like it's Bybit selling its crypto, or they called in a loan or whatever. Now, it takes more than one thing. So what's the next thing? Well, do you remember this yen problem from last year? And I briefly mentioned this. The Bank of Japan, which is the central bank of Japan, is actively in the market trying to prevent a repeat of that. Now, I haven't gone on and on and on and on and on about it, because I did that last year, and by the time I did, it was over. But that problem exists. So, and then we have the tariffs, right? Everybody thought that whatever happened yesterday was about the tariffs. Maybe the algos sell off the tariffs and that exacerbated the situation. But I think what they're doing with layoffs and reducing government spending is going to be a more powerful force to slow the economy down than tariffs will be. Tariffs are automatically inflationary. No, not if they're not if government spending gets crushed. But algos go sell. Then there was a nuance thing, which I think I have in the slides, where Microsoft backed out of some alliance with OpenAI. In other words, it's possible that we could be finding accounting irregularities. We could be finding out that AI is perhaps overvalued. In other words, people might be like DeepSeek, right? People after DeepSeek may be looking at OpenAI and going, does this make sense? We got NVIDIA earnings tomorrow. So if you have a mess in stonks and you have a mess at the Bank of Japan, it's no wonder people in crypto are like, well, you know what? I'm selling, especially if there's liquidation going on. I don't want to use profanity, even though that's pretty much appropriate, but people are just like, to heck with it, I'm getting out. Because, not all of these things are going to come to pass, I don't think. But fear of those things, and of course, somebody actually liquidating, sends people running for the hills, right? You can have a multifaceted problem. Okay. Now, what is the good news? Because that's what you're asking me, right? It's like, okay, Bill, we have a Bybit problem, we have a yen problem, and we have a Microsoft NVIDIA problem. Like, what do we do? Okay, the best thing we can hope for, even though it's not good for anyone's P&L, is that they just kind of get it all over with at once. That everyone just heaves it, everyone liquidates, and then you can come back in and go, okay, where's Web3? Where's DeFi? Where's all the stuff that we actually want to hold, right? Is it marked down massively? Okay, so that's the first thing. So I just think this is a gigantic liquidation event, borderline panic. All right, now in terms of like managing P&L, like I make occasional jokes about calling your accountant, getting rid of positions. So like if you bought some meme coin and it's not working out, don't stick around when it's down only. Like if you got to get out of stuff, if you got to preserve some capital so you can come back in, if this turns into a bigger event, then just do it. And sometimes, traders will tell you this. Sometimes it's just good old fashioned risk management, right? You did a trade. I had to do it yesterday. Did a trade, didn't work out. You feel like you're selling the low, but you just say, look, I wasn't willing to risk more than 20% in this, and then just sell it. Done. And if it's the low, it's the low. But, it's better than doing that and then waking up and having it be much worse, right? That's just a risk management-based approach. Okay. Honest says, I sold the bottom and I'll buy the high. Okay. Well, I bought the high in XRP and stopped out. I don't know. I stopped out like a week and a half ago. Like I sold stuff on the rally, but I left a lot of it. I just said, all right, I can't live with another vortex lower in ETH, just in case the pain trade is unbelievable, right? So ETH goes to 2,100 and I get out of ETH at like 2,600. And then Bybit comes in and is short. And it looks like ETH is going to go to the moon. And I'm just like, right. And then Solana just destroyed, right? I kept a Solana position because I wanted to get involved in antivirus and still do. And then, the next thing I know, it goes from 180 to 130 in like 2 days. Okay. So I'm telling you that story because if you have to make position adjustments, make them. Because if this gets stupid, you'll be able to come back in and buy at lower prices, or you'll be able to come back in and buy when it's stable. That doesn't mean liquidate everything, because I continue to believe time in the market matters, and who knows, 86K could have been it in Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know what the rationale is to take Bitcoin any lower unless forced selling continues. If there is good news, it's like, Bitcoin at 86, it feels pretty juicy. Okay. So I hope, I don't know if that helped you or not, but that's part of what I got this morning. Okay. So solid intel. Bybit started repaying borrowed ETH from institutions after 570 million in long positions were liquidated on their exchange in the past 24 hours. So Bybit lent a whole bunch of money to a customer, told them they wanted the money back, then it gets liquidated, right? And, I'll take it one step further. You want to stretch? You want to hear what you're not going to hear? I'll stretch it out for you. Come off the screen share. So, it was really obvious that it was the North Koreans who did this. It's a little bit too obvious. Like, what is the rationale for the North Koreans to come in and do something like this? I mean, I don't know. I guess they needed money. That's kind of weird. I mean, the orange man is a big ETH guy. Why would you do ETH? And then I thought to myself, who supports the North Koreans? Like, who props up that whole regime? The Chinese, right? So if you're going to do tariffs and you're going to hurt them when they're already hurting, what would they do? Well, they would come in and do an ETH hack in your favorite currency a week before the State of the Union comes out. So you can stand up at the podium and tell everybody that you think crypto is great when it's cascading lower because, these hackers started a chain reaction. If that's what they did, good move on their part. Because now you got the orange man stepping up to the podium in March. Crypto czars, strategic wealth fund, all the states are backing out now. At 108, it was extremely attractive as a reserve asset, but at 86, no one wants to touch it, which is stupid. But, there's like an egg on your face aspect to this that makes me go, because I'm not really a big believer in coincidences. My hope is that, the forced selling just comes to a climax and it ends. Okay. So for learning, this was what I should have seen. I did mention it, and I mentioned what the cringe of this. February 14th, 10 days ago, with Bitcoin at 100K and Solana at 200, Aston Martin partners with Coinbase, making the first fully Formula One deal paid for in USDC. Coinbase on a Formula One car was just like FTX Arena in Miami, except not as ridiculous. I hate when they do stuff like this. I absolutely hate it. So 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Yeah. So algos sell, and you have algos and Bybit selling at the same time. I really don't think this is an issue. This is not a reason to sell crypto. It isn't. This is not a reason to sell crypto. The dollar is going to go lower. Interest rates are going to go lower, and they're going to cut spending until it hurts. Right? Every day you've got some new huge fraud thing. So the first they're going to cut all the fraud, and then they're going to cut the legit spending. They're just going to keep doing it. Right? And they're probably going to do it more because now they need a distraction from the crypto nuke. So, and you have to at least hope that the orange man can come out and say, hey, thank you for making all this cheaper. Because that's what Michael Saylor is saying. He's like, the Bybit idiots liquidated, and instead of having to pay 108, I paid 96. 1.4 billion liquidated. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like every time this happens, it's like, oh, this is the biggest liquidation ever. It was the biggest liquidation ever. What 3 weeks ago? And now it's another biggest liquidation ever. Like, what do people do? Did they get liquidated and they just go back and do it again? Okay. I guess the good news is by the time everyone's done liquidating, the only people who are going to be long is BlackRock and Michael Saylor. Because institutions are probably hoovering up your crypto, laughing, going, wow, look at these imbeciles. Or this is a geopolitical event. People don't realize it. Right. I mean, I had no idea you would have this kind of chain reaction. Again, the Bybit guys in the black t-shirts telling you that we were on top of it. Yeah, they were on top of it, but I don't think anybody knew that you could have this kind of chain reaction. They did, but you did. And I'm not knocking them. I mean, they're helping their customers, right? If they have to sell to help their customers, they're going to sell. Or choose somebody else to sell. They don't care. They want their customers to get their funds back. I get it. I'm making fun of them a little bit, but they're doing the right thing for their customers. Okay, so federal employees are now, like I said, it's a little jumping around here. Federal employees are on tape every single day on TikTok talking about, where our $1 trillion that we borrow every 100 days actually goes. Again, I don't think these incidents of fraud or waste, the money that they save by themselves doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it doesn't matter. Okay. What does matter is that the harder they go at this and the more fraud they find, the harder they're just going to go after everything else. Like they're building up steam to just crush government spending, which I think is ridiculously bullish once we're past the nonsense, right? All right. So, the Trump family is listening to the show, right? They're coming out and saying, hey, and I don't blame them. Yeah, hoovering up Bitcoin to 86. That feels juicy to me. I'd be a lot more enthusiastic if Solana wasn't down only, because you have a meme coin bust, and that's trading like, someone's liquidating that to buy ETH. That's what it feels like. And Mike is into it. He's like, yo, retweeting Eric Trump. So we're trying to send in a rescue squad. Appreciate that. Bitcoin is on sale. And then I tell Mike, if Bybit is the seller, I'm glad you were the buyer. I'm glad. I am. Because I don't know where this thing would be if he didn't absorb $2 billion. Now, this is, again, a random jump around. Sorry, but somebody on, I don't know if this is, it can't be SBF, but Sam Bankman-Fried was heard from yesterday saying, I have a lot of sympathy for government employees. I have not checked my email in the last 100 days, but I confirm that being unemployed is a lot less relaxing than I think it is. And just to show you, that we've lost our minds. My experience is usually not the employee's fault, but it's usually correct to let them go. More often, the problem is that the company just doesn't have the right job for them. Or leadership screws up, and when leadership screws up, little guys pay. That's why when you have a big CEO that does well, you should pay him $100 million, literally, because he saves everyone's job. That's in the company, the suppliers, the customers, everybody. Seriously. Okay, so remember yesterday we were talking about zero hedge, like, the next crash will scar your mind. Shut up. I hate it when these guys are right. So, you have a momentum massacre, and this is just a reminder, not that I want to FUD this whole thing, but if this continues, this can spread, right? So if somebody's forced to liquidate Bitcoin, they might be forced to liquidate Microsoft or NVIDIA, right? Or if NVIDIA goes down, they might be forced to liquidate more Bitcoin. There can be a circular nature to this. I don't know that I want to go there, but you do need to be aware of the risks. Hopefully, they just puke all this Bybit stuff out, and the Fed and the Bank of Japan take care of the rest of this. Because if anyone's paying attention on the central bank front, like if I can figure out that this can be a circular mess, hopefully somebody in the White House or a central bank knows that too. Because if this spirals, like if you have a continued down move in crypto and then that triggers something else, that's why you manage risk. And that's also why there's going to be some super juicy stuff when this is over. Like seriously, like starting with Bitcoin. Like I think Bitcoin at 86 is juicy. And if they puke it or wick it, I don't know. Everyone's talking about 75. I mean, when it goes to 108, everyone's talking about 200. When it goes to 86, everyone talks about 75. Okay. Hopefully someone's paying attention because again, NVIDIA earnings are coming out. Okay. So my 2 cents again, here's Charles Hotchkiss going, what an extraordinary time. We have all the fundamentals of a giga bull run for markets, but somehow the industry has set a record for paper hands. No, the industry has set a record for imbeciles. Over-levered, meme coin froth, and rug pulls becoming normal. Like before this, it was like, hey, what's the rug of the day? It used to be, what's the coin of the day? Like John McAfee got in trouble for tweeting, hey, what's the cool coin of the day? Whether he was getting paid to promote it or not. Oh, that was terrible. Oh my God, call the SEC. Now we're going to have like, what's the rug of the day? Like it was assumed Kanye's coin was going to come out and it was going to rug. It's normal. It's not normal. It's almost like 5-year-olds throwing a temper tantrum on the supermarket floor. Crypto never ceases to amaze. Okay, so maybe people are paper handsing it, but I think the paper hands part with meme coins is already over. This is not about paper hands. This is about Bitcoin and Solana being forcibly liquidated, which is what I said. Now, the good news is that when forced selling ends, right, it just goes vertical. Like you'll know when they're done forced selling because then it's like a hot air balloon taking off because literally everyone's out and the next buyer moves price a lot because there's no seller. That's the good news about forced selling. Now, the question is, when are they done? Like clearly they did a lot yesterday with Solana down 15%. The best hope is that the market just sort of sits here. We got some Gantt events going on near the end of the month. And, we got to sit around for like 3 days and we got to live through NVIDIA earnings. Right. And Charles Hoskinson is like, everyone has paper hands. I don't think anybody woke up and was like, oh, yeah, Solana at 150. I'm selling because I hate it. I can't take it anymore. No, I think it was just like somebody just crushed it. Some computer was just like, yeah, we have to sell. That's what happens, I think, with these forced liquidations, right? They just send it to a trading desk and they input it into a computer. And the computer just sits on it all day doing forced liquidations. Okay, the best performing company year to date in the S&P is one that is 24 hours away from being delisted and submitted. Its last audited yearly 10K was 2023. If this doesn't give you a sense of how dangerously detached stocks are from reality, I don't know what can. So Super Micro Computing is a company that does business with NVIDIA that has an accounting problem. NVIDIA earnings are coming out. I think Microsoft backed out of a deal. And here's the Bank of Japan. Bank of Japan to supply US dollar funds against pooled collateral. I don't know what that means, but I do know what it means is that they got a problem in their system. It's been percolating, and now the Bank of Japan is in. Thank God. Thank God they're trying to do something. I don't know. I mean, it is cool in the macro community, and it's partially true to go, oh, these guys have lost control. They lost control last year, and you saw what happened. I can't even think about this happening. I mean, if you have something going on in stonks at the same time you have something going on in crypto, like they're not the same thing. That's why I'm just telling everybody, it's like, look, if you have to manage risk, you have to puke out of something. I did it. If you have to do it, do it. Market's going back up again. We got plenty of time to get back in. Bitcoin, I don't see the rationale for getting out of Bitcoin at 86. Because you're going to want to buy it at 75 because we're going to need a different currency. But the rest of it, you have to think, right? All right. Ski mask, right? So this is becoming the poster child for the failed rally, right? Beware of failed rallies. This thing went up, failed, and then turned around and went back down again. It's kind of funny. The antivirus samurai ate the dip when they puked it to 6 cents. There's a lot of volume down here. And the thing that's funny is these guys have a value proposition and they're delivering, which no one wants to hear about in the down market. But you know what I sense is happening here? People are going, you know what? I got to get out of Solana. Let me get out of Solana and get into something that might go up. Because I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, everyone's got FTX PTSD because Solana down 15% and then Solana down again is creepy. It's just creepy. So antivirus temporarily benefiting from that. Okay, let's go to some TA here. So let's start with Solana. Now, 2 days ago, I said you were going to have 3 days of this. Okay. I didn't think you were going to have 20% down. Now, the good news about Solana is there's support at 131. Now, I'm going to go to like a tactical chart of Solana, right? So the good news is, like, if you ever wanted to understand what these DeMark, like what a perfect DeMark signal looks like how this works, this is the perfect example. So you have the first part of the trend that goes 1 through 9. You have a grotesque failed rally. And then you have 13 bars down. So, Solana looks okay. It's okay. It's not a disaster. It's just sitting here. And that would be just fine with me. That would be just fine. I don't like the fact that it doesn't have, like any bounce here gets kind of sold. But at a minimum in Solana, we have today and we have tomorrow, and that could be it. That could be it. That's the good news. The longer it sits, if it just sits, it's okay. Of course, I said that 2 days ago, right? If it sits, it's okay. Or if there's some kind of panic off NVIDIA, or there's a relief rally off NVIDIA, that would be wonderful, right? If you had this is a 12, if you had a 13 bottom in Solana, and NVIDIA is okay, this could turn around. Okay, if you have a 13 bottom and it doesn't go up, okay, well, that's a different story. But, there's doesn't seem to be any point in getting bearish on Solana at 130. There's downside risk, but, the chart is holding. And I think it's the same thing in Bitcoin, although Bitcoin is breaking 90 or 89, which, I was like, wow, they're really going to take it down there. And I guess so. Now, this also proves another point, which, to a certain degree, I mentioned it, but I didn't pound the table. See this kind of action in Bitcoin here, where it just sits there like this? This looks like a mini version of 2018, because when Bitcoin just goes down and just sits there, it's a recipe for a problem. And I didn't take it seriously enough because it was Bitcoin and it was support down here. Okay, so if Bitcoin closed above 90, we don't have to, it's like, we're okay. It's fine. But, because Bitcoin is 2 days away, this is in 11, you'll have 12 and 13, and hopefully that's it, right? Question is, what level is that going to occur at? 86 could be a good level, right? I mean, this is probably the best chart out there, honestly, right? So you could have a puke in Solana at 130 and be done, and you could have a puke in Bitcoin and just sit here for 2 days. And if NVIDIA is fine and Bybit's done, then you can levitate back in the other direction. So in a way, the DeMark charts are the best looking thing out there. It's the best looking thing out there because it looks over, it feels over. I mean, can you imagine, like, up here in Bitcoin at 108, it was going to 200, right? Like, I thought this was going to be a corrective pause and then to the stars. Now you're at the flip side. You're at 89. Everyone's talking 75. It's over. Like, literally, like, everybody I'm talking to, the cycle's over. It's done. You don't know the cycle is done until you find out if Bybit can crush it. 1, 2, you don't know the cycle is done unless equities go with it, right? Then you have like an everything crash. I'm hoping the Fed prevents that, because the best piece of news, which just kind of came to me now, is how can you have an everything crash 6 days before the State of the Union with everybody in the government getting fired, right? Like, Treasury's got to step in, Fed's got to step in, the tour of Fort Knox will undoubtedly be canceled. You cannot have an everything crash before the State of the Union. That's the most bullish thing out there, right? Is that the Fed comes in. So, like, somebody was asking about QE. They don't wait. They just put high-powered money in the system right now to just stop this. Not because they want to stop crypto, although that would be a good idea because the president's got his name all over that. And hopefully the fact that Eric Trump is out means that the telephone has, telephone has rang and the Fed is on the job. Not that it's the Fed jobs to save our bags, but again, you cannot have this thing go full nuke before the president talks. You just can't. That's the good news. Hopefully these characters in NVIDIA have their act together and there's no accounting problem. I think if NVIDIA comes out and the Fed is on the job and the forced selling is done, that's when you can have that balloon style levitation. That's why I don't want to get totally out. Like, you keep Bitcoin and a small coin you like. That's what I did, right? Like I kept Bitcoin, I kept antivirus, and then everything in the middle, I had to stop. I just got stopped out because that's what happens. I stopped out at the low. It doesn't matter. You just got to have like some level of discipline where you're like, okay, this trade didn't work. Keep the stuff you believe in. Or as my colleague would say, buy what you love. Okay. Now, here's the chart that scares me. Okay. So this is ETH, right? ETH outperformed. ETH went sideways during the Bybit thing. And the thing that scares me about ETH is like this decline will end. When it ends, it'll be the end. But they could have 5 more days, right? Like ETH didn't go down like everything else. So, major cringe. All right, let's go to Luxalgo. Frankly, some stuff going on here I just can't believe. Okay, so let's start with the 4-hour chart of Solana, right? Now, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, so let's just label this Solana 4-hour. And I'm going to label this as my brain going, this can't go any lower. So I'm looking at the 4-hour chart of Solana. We had the DeMark work showing support in 1 or 2 more days. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is every buy signal in the world. It is. It's a 5-wave bottom. It's on the discount zone. It's on a trend line. Luxalgo drew this like cone. It's like, it's like Solana's got this floor underneath it, like around 125 or 130. How can this possibly go lower? All right. Well, that's reasonable. I mean, I got stopped out. That sucks. But, it's like, all right, well, this is not the end of the world. But, if you move over to the daily chart of Solana, right? So the tactical stuff looks okay. It does. But then I'm like, oh my God. Like the buy signal, the reversal signals in Solana were like 5-6 days ago. And this puked out anyway. That's how I know it's for selling. Like that's when I know. Like, okay, yeah, this should have stopped. You had a beautiful Gann line. You had all this support. I was like, oh, this is going to be fine. It's going to be okay. I mean, Bybit's got to do something, but, right? Now you got the discount zone on the daily chart of Solana between 129 and 109. You know what I'm starting to smell? Especially since it just sits here like this. I mean, it's not terrible, but I'm starting to smell like some kind of stupid wick down. Like everyone panics like all at once. Maybe that's tomorrow. Maybe it's not at all. But if you look at this setup, right, the tactical chart says it's over, but the daily chart, you don't know. Okay. Which, try to manage risk without panicking. Now, one thing I did get right is I was looking for a final climactic low in Ethereum versus Bitcoin, right? So believe it or not, Ethereum versus Bitcoin is still off of its low for the month. But what I'm hoping is next month, if there's another heave in ETH, versus Bitcoin, right? Or Bitcoin gets hammered, you never know, that the underperformance of ETH, which has gone on for years and unwound everything that's happened in ETH relative to Bitcoin for 4 years, that trend will stop and ETH can turn around, probably based on DeFi, because Phantom was trading good, Maker was trading good, right? There were a lot of things that looked okay. Privacy looked all right, Zcash looked all right, but then, so ETH could make a low versus Bitcoin in the next 5 days. Honestly, you could, see those signals at the beginning of March. The only thing that you have to recognize is that, that's 3 days away. And what they can do in the meantime is up in the air. Hopefully this is helping you. Okay. So Hedera. Sam is here. Bose is saying, is this a spot bag? Yeah, it was a spot bag for me. Like I just, I got stopped out of whatever, not all of it, but part of it, I got stopped out. Okay. Hedera, funny you mentioned that because I actually was looking at both Hedera and Algorand yesterday. Okay. So this is Hedera, right? You had the 13 bottom, but you couldn't get a rally, right? This is what bugs me in the space. You get bottom signals that don't work. And then you have support down here at 14 cents. So either Hedera is going to wick down like everything else and retest the support before it turns. That seems like it could happen, right? Or this is just like an emotional heave. Like made in the USA crypto is out the window. Everyone's forgotten about it, which I think is a huge mistake. I think it's a huge mistake. But that said, you have a double top and you've got everyone trapped up here. You got all these people that bought into Hedera, they're all down money. And you had this pretty grotesque rally failed rally, which, reflects the fact that they're all trapped. So 14 cents has to hold this support. That's what I'm saying, right? Because, if Trump doesn't go no transaction tax, I mean, it would seem like that would be obvious, right? But I mean, Algorand, like there is no sign. Like, it's like ETH. It's like 5 days away on the daily chart, right? I don't know what the tactical charts look like. It's not even on the tactical charts. Like, yeah, it would be good if it reversed here. That would look good, but there is no signal here that says this is going to reverse. It would be great if it did, but it's not there yet. That's all I'm saying, right? Okay. So let's try and sum this up. All right. If you have to manage risk NFA. That's it. You did a bad trade. You do not want to be wrecked if forced selling gives you a huge opportunity. I do not think the crypto cycle is over. It wasn't over a year ago on the yen carry trade, and I don't think it's over now. Now, did you have an emotional top off like Trump meme coins and Formula One Coinbase cars? Yeah. Now, the reason I don't think it's the end of the cycle is because there was no cycle. It was Bitcoin and stupid meme coins. Frankly, there was no cycle. Web3 never went up. You had SUI go up and nothing else. What went up? Stuff went up off the election and then unwound itself, and ETH never participated. So everyone's like, the cycle's over. And I'm almost like, what cycle? What cycle? Right? You didn't have alt season. You didn't have all this stuff going up at the same time. And that may continue. But that doesn't mean the cycle's over. That just means you're going to have to be selective about what you buy. And all that could be massively on sale now or 2 days from now, depending on what the equity market chimpanzees do. But, if those NVIDIA earnings are bad, you will have a down trade. Most likely that could be a buy in crypto because the Fed comes in right away. You can absolutely not have the president of the United States on the tape with an everything crash. You cannot have the political opposition, which is being run out of Washington, go, see, Trump wrecked the market with tariffs. Because that's what they'll say, right? They won't put Bybit, Microsoft, and NVIDIA, the yen. They won't put all that together. They'll just be like, the orange dummy issued, did tariffs and everything crashed. So the optics for him are bad, which means if there is an everything crash, the Fed's in immediately. And that's what will save crypto which is why I don't want everybody just giving up and saying the cycle's over. Honestly, there never was a cycle. And if this gets worse, you will probably see every central bank, because the Fed doesn't want a problem in Japan or here. And obviously Japan doesn't want a problem in Japan. Okay. So hopefully that gives you some sort of sense as to where we are. Where we are is almost at the end. What we don't know is what the end looks like, the end of the down move. We don't know. All I know is I don't like failed rallies, and you'll know when the forced selling is over when it just levitates. Because again, forced selling will end and the Fed will be in at that point. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. If it was or it wasn't, leave a comment down below so we know how to adjust the show. That's it. I will see you tomorrow.